This is the Self-Taught or Not podcast with
Dylan Israel.
and Eric Hanchett, where we teach you the do's and don'ts of software development from two software development professionals, one self-taught and one not.
Before we dive into the Rejection podcast, I just wanted to make note that rejection is oftentimes a path to success, right? Failure is a path to success. And so you fail, and then you succeed. One thing I recently succeeded with was the Ultimate Coding Resources List, which is an open source GitHub repo where it's a collection of the best books, the best sources. It's really a curated list of the best programming, web development, computer science courses, and it actually was trending on GitHub for a couple days. Has a little just shy of 2,000 stars. It's only been out for about a week, but if you're interested in checking out, I'll include a link in the description below. All right, here we go. Rejection. That,
I don't think we should do this episode.
yeah. Let's not talk about all our failures and all of our depressing moments, but for all their shittiness, it sort of have made, rejection and failure sort of makes us who we are. And I definitely know for me, there's been times, we were sort of just talking about it actually before we started this podcast about like, I'm feeling a little bit down about the YouTube channel and in a sense feeling like I'm failing a little bit and rejecting, but that's part of the process. A lot of times it's part of the growing process. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our failures, a little bit about getting rejected. It's happened to me quite frequently in my life, and for better or for worse. And not only the right mindset, but why it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we've kind of touched on this topic before in our imposter syndrome, negative mindsets, episode 10, and also a little bit on our how to do a developer interview. But I think this is going to be specific about some of our rejections that we've had recently and how we deal with them. It's one of those things that I've for many years in my life I've actively rejected doing. I've rejected doing things I think I'll be rejected in, if that makes sense. And you kind of avoid failure, but you find out, and we'll kind of touch upon this, that it's a way to really grow as a human being, as a person, being able to put yourself in situations and be in places where you can and often will be rejected, but you can learn from that and you can get better at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that if you're hitting 100% of your shots, you often aren't going for large enough leaps, and you often aren't challenging yourself. And I'm not saying that it's going to feel good or that you're going to enjoy missing those milestones or goals, but we do need to be pushing ourselves in life, in whatever direction it is, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your career, whatever it is. You definitely want to go for the the long-term gains rather than the short-term ones. And I think when you do that, you're naturally gonna miss the beat quite a bit. And I know when I've had like guests on my channel who I've been interviewing, and they've been, this is like their third startup, and they're just going at it because like they're passionate and they're hardworking, and it's like, all right, first shit didn't work out, third tries to charm.
If you don't succeed at first, try again.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is the and then try, not just twice. But this that's definitely the truth. So part of the reason this came about is I obviously throw myself out there quite a bit, in whether it's the podcast, whether it's the YouTube channel. I'm not afraid of trying things and sometimes falling short. And one thing I've actually talked about on a couple of occasions is sometimes it's okay to quit things because it's already a failure. People sometimes hold on to things for too long and they just have to succeed, that it ends up causing more harm than good. And you have to have a healthy balance of what is something you're passionate about and is going to work out, and what is something you're passionate about that simply will not work out in its current form. So keep that in mind as you are there. There are ways to make a failure successful. Like one thing I've talked about numerous times is my college pass, which you know, I've actually considered going back recently. I got my transcripts. This is sort of off tangent and but still sort of on topic. But I saw it's like, God, I have 207 credits completed and no bachelor's degree. Why would I put myself through this? Clearly, I'm not going to hit the finish line. Like it was just depressing. But I digress from my personal scholastic troubles. Um, Recently I got rejected twice in 1 week, which is never a good feeling to sort of get hit with the old one too.
Yeah, that. I mean, talk to us about that. What happened?
Yeah. So I just did, and sort of in the vein of throwing myself out there, I did my conference talk at DevFest, Florida, in Orlando about 4 months back, and I had such a great time. I was like, let's take a step up in competition. And so the thing I was most excited about was going ahead and trying to speak at NGConf. So I submitted 4 topic ideas. I reached out to Joe over at Thinkster, which we have courses out on, and he's a nice guy. He helps run NGConf for and is going to be giving several lectures. And I asked for some tips on going, and he was nice enough to give me some. And I submitted 4 different talks. One about eliminating globals using a PubSub RxJS model. One more standard about um, interpersonal skills and how they relate as a developer. Another little in the same sort of vein of that, of how to succeed as a self-taught developer, and another more technical one about abstract classes and TypeScript specifically. And unfortunately, I got rejected. They did send me a coupon for a discount off of the ticket, and all my work was nice enough to send me. But that was something I was really looking forward to, and it I always joke that it's okay to feel shitty about yourself for about 30 minutes. But after that, you got to sort of say, okay, cool. What's the next challenge that I'm going to go and tackle?
You know what's worse when that happens too is that you put the effort in to put 4 different talks, not one, not two, but 4. And I'm sure you spent a lot of time thinking about the ideas of like how you're going to put it together. And you also hit up two, well, there were like 2 technical and 2 non-technical talks.
Yeah, I tried to. So one of the pieces of advice I got was that sometimes there's a lot of topics that come in that are very similar, and they're going to go with the more well-known speaker typically in that case. So submit a couple different topic ideas. And so in that case, I was trying to come up with a little bit of variety to increase my chances of success.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is that yeah, it's even when you put all that time and effort in, it really sucks. And conferences nowadays are kind of a they take a lot of different. They like diversity. They like having non-technical talks and technical talks. So that's a really great piece of advice. But sometimes you can make all the right moves and still lose.
Yeah, and so that sucked, right? And that happens, but the same thing could have happened when I applied to my first conference, but it didn't, and that went really well. And I then at that very same conference got recommended by to the Google Developers Expert Program, which if you don't know what the GDE program is, this is a quick synopsis of it. It's essentially a program where non-Google employees are recommended by current Google employees to represent one of Google's technologies. So, like an example in my case was Angular, right? I've worked in Angular for about 3 years. The talk I gave was on TypeScript, specifically geared towards Angular. And one of the speakers from Google was like, hey, it'd be perfect. Let's connect. You have to be referred into the program. And so I applied, and it's a nice little sort of something you put on your resume and connect, and sort of work alongside Google in some form or fashion to show your support of the community. And unfortunately, after applying and being referred, it didn't work out. But in that case, I can try again at a later date to see if I'm a better fit 6 months or a year out. But that all happened in like a 3-day period. And what sort of made it worse was both of these things you sort of apply to and then wait. So I think I applied maybe 4 or 6 weeks ahead of time for both of these. And so you're waiting, you're thinking, you're excited to see what's next, all that sort of stuff. And then you just like, nope. I was like, oh, okay, that's shitty. Well, at least I still got like, this Google thing in the pipeline. And then like a day later, like, oh, I guess that didn't work out either. That's unfortunate.
So how did it make you feel?
Like I said, I usually feel shitty for about 30 minutes. And then I say, okay, well, I'm glad I attempted it. And on that point, I'd asked for some feedback as to why and how I could get better. And so, once so the whole feeling stuff is sort of, it doesn't matter, right? It's what you do regardless of the feelings, right? I think that's sort of what makes people adults, right? People often say like, how do you stay so focused and learn to code? I was like, I don't know, dude, I just matured. Like I got sick of being broke, and I was like, yo, I'm not doing this anymore, and I got rid of distractions. That's sort of the same mentality I have with a lot of these things, is that like children get upset, they scream, they yell, they cry, they throw tantrums. Adults analyze the situation and they say, okay, I feel shitty. That sucked. What's next? Is it, oh, cool, I can apply in the future? Great. How, maybe I can do X, Y, and Z to make sure I'm successful the next time.
That's the thought I always have when these things happen, that okay, I'm going to feel crappy for a little bit and then I'm going to pull myself up. And that's hard. I mean, I'll say myself, I think it's really hard. I can get really down on myself when these things happen. It just feels terrible. And to kind of like get that out of your head, it takes a while. I mean, honestly, like that's why there's therapists out there that you can talk to and you can tell you about your problems, and you can, and they can listen to your feelings and how you're feeling, and it helps a lot of people. But I'm just thinking, if you're listening right now and you're like, I can't do that, I can't just let these things go, just realize that's normal too, and that you, and it's okay to feel crappy for more than a half hour, an hour, day or two. Maybe you need to talk to someone and get some help too. That's okay too.
I like to scream profanity and punch a pillow for about once or twice. That always.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
It's like
I
Rocky. You're just gonna like knock someone out.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I haven't done that since I was like 20. But but yeah, it does suck, and everyone's going to handle it differently. But I think the main thing is, don't let it define you, because at the end of the day, if you always play it safe, you're never going to be happy with what it is that's there. And um, this is something I think a lot of people, and especially something I've sort of been asked by on live streams, and I've heard April tell me that some of the people in her cohorts are worried about, as they go and start applying for jobs, they're getting all these rejection letters and they don't know how to, it's affecting their mentality. And I think you have to have the mentality, this is just part of the process, this is how it is. It's not personal most of the time, I guess. Like, I guess you could have rubbed somebody wrong in the interview process. When you're putting yourself out there, you're not going to be successful 100% of the time. And when you're getting started in the industry, especially, you're going to get a lot more no's than yeses. And the good thing is, you really only need one yes to sort of break in.
I have personally taken that philosophy now. Um, just try to put yourself out there as much and expect a lot of no's, but all you need is a few yeses to make your dreams come true for sure.
Yeah, that goes the same for your relationship or anything else. Is like, you know, typically, we live in 2020, so people have multiple girlfriends, multiple wives, but typically you're looking for one person, and you might go on a couple dates. You might get rejected flat out, where look, dude, it ain't gonna happen, or vice versa, and then you go on a couple dates. I'm not really feeling it, so on and so forth. But you keep trying, right? You don't go and fail. You go and ask this. You're 15. Let's paint the picture. You're 16. You ask a girl out to dinner. She says no, or to coffee or something. And then what do? You just go live your life in solitude after for the rest of your life. You're like, nope, I tried it. It wasn't no one nobody wants me. I'm just gonna die alone. That doesn't seem like a proper game plan. No, you get up and you figure out, okay, did I do something wrong? How can I improve? Did I just like scream in her face, "Go to coffee with me," or like where did I go wrong? You analyze and try to do better. Hopefully,
I like the idea of get better, not bitter. So it's so easy to start blaming other people when things you don't get your way. You're like, it was her fault that she rejected me. No, it's not her fault. It's not the employer's fault for not hiring you. It's not Google's fault for not picking you. It's not and some conference fault. It just is. Maybe there is nobody's fault. Maybe it's not your fault either. It just happened. And you just kind of have to take that with what happened.
yeah, and I would say if you don't know, I'd rather err on the side of caution in the sense of like take responsibility. Like maybe it is my fault. Maybe I did something wrong I didn't even know. Because too often, especially with the way the internet works, is the most vocal people are the whiny ones that like to complain other people about. It's not me, it's them. It's it's like that. Too often people like to point out issues with other people rather than look inside, and I think we're all guilty of this, myself included, where it's hard to look in the mirror and be like, "Yo, I suck." Like whatever it is, I suck, and maybe I'm not at the level I need to be in whatever it is I failed in. Instead of just saying, you know what, they were biased, they didn't like me for whatever reason.
I'm gonna find the mute button there. Yeah, exactly. This quote from. Do you watch Rocky? Have you watched
The,
Rocky?
yeah, yeah,
You've listened to his inspirational quotes. So I like this quote. I think everybody that's listening will probably recognize this one. So I'm not going to try to do Rocky voice because I don't think I could do it. But it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth.
yeah, and it's super true because you don't want to go through life as a glass cannon. You know what I mean? Like for a little wow reference there, but you need to be able to pick yourself up. And I think a lot of people sort of get stuck and enjoying the misery. It's sort of it's hard to explain because like I remember being like a depressed teenager and sort of thinking back at times, sort of enjoying this victim mentality of like, oh, I don't know, like becoming having failure and like becoming part of your identity, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you don't want to get into that place where you think that. I mean, you touched on this before, but when you fail at something, and we all are at some point or another, that's how we grow as human beings. You can kind of put on that persona that you're a failure. Like if you try something and it doesn't work, you might think, well, I'm a failure. And then you kind of get that into your head. And it's almost a self fulfilling prophecy at that point. If you think you're a failure, you're probably going to act like a failure. So, you got to always separate everything you do in life from who you are because we're all complicated people with different interconnections with different personalities and people, and we have different hobbies. I think we're both, me and Dylan, are extremely passionate about programming and technology and development. But in other parts of our life, we're completely different people with our spouses, with our girlfriends. I know you're not married, Dylan, but with your girlfriend, with my wife. I mean, we're all just different people. So don't let that kind of define you. Is what
Yeah,
I'm trying
my
to say.
my girlfriend thinks I'm an idiot. Like so it's she's like, I don't know what you did, but apparently all you're able to do is program and you lost all comments. And it's funny that you mentioned that because like she I don't know what I did, but she said that and I was like, that's she said this like 10 minutes before this podcast as I was bringing in groceries and I was like, that's bullshit. And I hit my head on the top of the like trunk and she's just died laughing. But yeah, it's you have to have the right mentality. And that's not to say go through life arrogant or go through life with an ego or anything like that. I think that's one of the worst things that you can do. But look humbly upon yourself and don't look to blame others, and you'll get much farther, right? You'll find out that, oh, maybe I failed this time, but instead of blaming somebody else or something else, let's figure out how we can succeed next time. And chances are you will, or the time after that, or the time after that. But you'll get much farther, and you'll typically be a lot happier also.
I think we've talked about this a bit. Do you want me to jump in with some of my stories?
Yeah, yeah. Let's not make it like I'm the only loser on this podcast. But
All right. Okay. So I was thinking about some ideas and some stories that I've had of rejections in my life, and especially related to technology and programming in my career. I don't know if I've told this one before. I may have hinted on this one, but if you go all the way back to the episode where I was talking about how I got my first job out of college, I had ended up taking this job working with my wife in a small company, and then I got laid off after working there for 2 years. And this was pretty much the height of the housing crisis, the recession, the 2008 to 2010 recession. And I was looking for a new job, and I had applied everywhere, and I finally got an offer to work in quality assurance at a kind of this gaming company. And as soon as I started, I knew that I wanted to become a software developer because I had worked software development for 2 years prior, and that QA wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And no harm for anybody listening that's into QA. QA is a great career and great field. Just wasn't for me. But I took the job because I needed a job, and it sounded like a place I can kind of move around in my career, move forward in my career. The first 2 years there, I was spent my days from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. with an hour lunch every day. I was opening up Excel spreadsheets, putting in test cases, going to a physical machine. This is a picture like a casino, and they actually have a slot machine. I would walk over to the slot machine. I did this every day, and I would test it. And I would push the buttons on the slot machine. I would obviously it's on free play mode. I'm putting money in it. This is a QA environment, and I would just test different things. And then I would go back and look at my system because we had it connected to, which is a player tracking system and a casino management system. Essentially, I was making sure that the money I put in matches the money that was given out, and so I had to do some accounting. And it was a pretty monotonous job, and that's kind of what my life was for 2 years. And about 6 months in, I had gotten a little fed up with it. I was working really hard. Don't get me wrong. I was putting in extra hours. I was trying to figure out ways I could use my programming skills to make the system better. We had some systems in that department that could be automated that I was creating apps for to make it easier to do, but it still wasn't quite the right job. And I think if I knew what I knew now, I would probably have started applying for places, but I was convinced that I needed to work my way up. So I had started applying internally to different development positions in the company I was at. And I don't know, I think between the year I started and about 6 months later until I finally got a job in development at that company, it was probably over a year and a half of applying. And I must have done a dozen interviews, maybe half a dozen, 6 to 12 interviews probably. And I failed every single one. And I remember it was like a year in to the process, and my boss was he was okay with me applying, by the way. Some bosses would be like, no, you need to stay here. And I remember I had nailed this interview. It was a development manager had me come in. He wanted me to do a linked list on the board from memory, and so it was sort of like an algorithm type question. Then he wanted me to show how it connected together. He asked me some questions, and I just nailed it on the board. And part of the reason I nailed it was because I actually was taking a class. I already had a computer science degree, but I was taking a class in community college in my town on Java, which is the programming language that they were using at that company. And so they had just gone over linked lists, so it was like pretty fresh in my mind. I was studying for it, and I just nailed that interview. And I remember being like so confident that I got it, and then I got the rejection email that they picked a different candidate. And I went and talked to my team lead, and he's like, "Well, it sounded like you wanted to move to development, but you didn't get it. So now we need to focus on QA." And essentially telling me that I'm done. Like I need to focus on QA, that my dream of moving to development's done, and I should just be happy where I'm at. And I was devastated. Like I knew I I kicked butt on that interview. So I listened to his feedback that basically I was done. And I was like, nope, not going to not that that's still not going to happen. So I tried even harder. I was like scouring like every week or two. I was like looking at the internal job boards, just trying to do my best to apply for as many jobs. And finally, after 2.5 years, I finally was able to transfer into the development department.
I don't know if I would have made it 2.5 years of doing that slot machine stuff. But yeah, man, it's a try again without a doubt.
Yeah, it was really heartbreaking. I talked to the HR manager at one point, and they had told me that they are very difficult. They basically told me it's very difficult to transfer around in the company because they don't like other departments poaching from other departments. So it was kind of definitely an uphill battle. And then when I finally got that interview, and I might be exaggerating a little bit, I think it was 6 to 12 interviews. It might have been a few less. But when I finally got the interview after it was almost 2.5 years of working in QA doing slot machine work. She was like, I've noticed that you've been hustling a lot. I noticed that you've been applying a lot. I want to give you a chance. And she told me like I had ended up working at that job for 8, 9 years. 6 years later, she's like, that was the best hire I did when I hired you. I knew that you had a shot, and I'm glad I took a chance on you. And it was so much like validation that I did the right thing. And I could have easily, after my team lead came up to me and told me like, sounds like you didn't get that job. Let's focus on QA. I could have been like, okay, this is my career for the rest of my life. I'm just gonna sit down and do this QA work. But I knew that that wasn't the right path for me.
Ugh. I'd be like, I don't know. I might have said something nasty.
And, yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
was crazy.
yeah, and I know, I've, sometimes there are things that you go and you try and you fail and you reflect on, and then you say, you know what, maybe it's for the best, right? Like, I've talked about how I essentially quit a job after 3 days, where I was successful in getting this job, and I was like, oh shit, I don't want this job. So, sometimes, but there's other times where you go and you go and you go and you go and roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and you just sort of that a little bit of that grind, that challenge at times is what as you have these hardships and these obstacles, really you're like, oh no, I want this, right? And I know when I was trying to teach myself software engineering and get my first role, no degree, no anything, that I was just there. And I remember ever so clearly people just sort of smiling and nodding at me, and um sort of telling, okay, yeah, cool, man, do your thing. And the whole time you sort of know that they're just like, oh, Dylan's gonna be broken homeless. Uh, and you're like, no, I'm gonna do it. And then, eventually, roadblock after roadblock, with that determination and attempt, 13 or whatever it ends up being, you get there. And you're like, okay, I made the right choice. And it feels a little bit, I don't know, I mean, tell me how you felt, but I know in my circumstance I felt a level of relief and a level of and a moment of very proud, like self-proudness. I was very proud of my accomplishment.
Yeah, it's the greatest feeling that after you've spent all that time trying for something and you finally get it, you're like, wow, you can congratulate yourself. It's like, wow, it's you did it. I mean, and you do sometimes have that little bit of buyer's remorse. It can happen. I think the first week I was at that job, I had finally transferred into the development job. I remember I had this huge SQL query transact SQL report that I had to fix and figure out, and I spent 10-hour days for like 2 weeks trying to figure it out because I had no idea. Like I knew SQL, but I had no idea how to create this crazy query to create this report the correct way. And they were really literally like, I had a really good team lead, but you find this out when you get your first development job that you have to figure out your things yourself. If you rely too much on your team lead, you are going to probably not going to last. So you have to just kind of learn all by yourself. But going back to the feeling ad, it's a great feeling. It's good, and you sometimes during this whole journey, you sometimes will have people that you care about that think they know better than you.
Mhm.
So, and it doesn't have to be a stranger. It could be someone close to you, and they'll be like, listen, you've tried this for a year or two. Maybe it's fine that you just stick with this because they know, and the reason they do that is because they know you're hurting. They know that they look at you and they see how hard you're working and how much time and effort you're putting into this thing. Maybe it's getting the first programming job or transferring or something, and they look at you and they're like, this guy's hurting. I mean, why can't he be happy with what he has now? I mean, some people would love to have this QA job. Some people would love to have the place you're in, and they want to make you feel better. So they'll say things they think will make you feel better, but it's not helpful. And you just kind of have to understand, like, okay, that's what they think. That's not true. This is what I believe.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, some of them are your closest people in your life. I know from in my circumstance, that's my parents, and I love them to death. But my father's fairly successful individual, and my mom pretty much just sort of smiles and nods at pretty much anything. She doesn't like confrontation and just sort of does it. But like I knew without a doubt that the advice that they were giving me of like, well, you should probably do this and do that, and like, only you are walking your own path, and only you really are there, and that sort of leads to like why you're so proud because you were the one there doing all the work, all the late nights, all the blood, sweat, tears, everything, and sometimes people want to give you advice, unsolicited advice. A lot of times, a lot of people want to give a lot of unsolicited advice. I guess this is sort of what we're doing right now. But well, I guess
No,
is
no,
it
they
is it
opted in. They
yeah.
opted in
Oh
by
yeah,
playing.
so this is
If
solicited.
if you're
All right.
32 minutes in right now,
Yeah.
then you've
Yeah.
opted
Yeah, you're in. This isn't we didn't get you with any clickbait at 32 minutes. But the people who they want to help. Oftentimes it's not like they're trying to hurt, but they're giving advice with the goal of helping, but it could be very harmful at the same time. So you gotta sort of weigh the pros and the cons and sort of really think about, do these people know about this specific topic inside and out? And yeah, it's a hard thing. Um,
because I think we've all know a cousin or a distant relative that you could tell they don't have things are not right for them. I mean, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They may be into drugs, they may be into alcohol, they may be into some bad things. And then you kind of want to sit down and tell them like, "Hey, you're screwing up the life." But to their maybe in their minds, they're like, "Well, I'm doing everything I can. I know my path better than you." And you're looking at them and like, wow, this guy's a mess. So I guess you kind of have to. It's a complicated subject.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, take my situation. Oh, hey, I spent 5 years doing 200 plus credits, and I'm a year away from getting my degree. And I'm like, by the way, I'm dropping out of college. I like I know for a fact, whether my family will admit it or not, that they just thought this was a horrible decision and was going to end horribly, and yeah, I'm just going to waste a year or two and then go back to finish my degree. Um, but
How do
the
you know? How do you know if what you're doing is right, or if the advice you're getting from other people is right,
well,
or is there no right or wrong in some of these things?
I mean, it's yeah, that's an excellent question. Sometimes there is no right or wrong, but you have to do what you think is best. Now, one thing when it comes to advice is if you don't consider anyone's words, if you wouldn't consider taking their advice. And what I mean by that is like, um, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to give you unsolicited advice. If you would normally not respect that person or consider it, you don't even take it into consideration. So like just eliminate that. Now, when it comes to the whole right or wrong thing, I'm a true believer of like you know what's best because you're looking out for your number one interest more than your spouse, more than your mother, your father, your children. I truly do believe that an individual knows as long as they're of the right mind, and that's not to say that you're not going to make mistakes, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to know what's best for you because you've been living your life as you this whole time. And you have to look objectively at it. And in my case, it was a situation where I spend I was spending 8 to 14 hours a day for like 8 months coding and doing everything. Meetups, courses, videos, YouTube, whatever I could do, understanding the industry and the people who are giving me advice about how to be successful with it probably didn't know anything and they weren't living and breathing it. So you have to really weigh, are they trying to help you because they care about you? Yes, but are they knowledgeable about what it is that is blocking you and what it is that, what these barriers to success are that's causing you to be rejected or potentially fail? And in that case, that's usually how I weigh the cons. And I sort of, it's not going to be easy. It's never easy, but that you do have to look objectively at a lot of this stuff.
I like that. Don't take everybody's advice. Just make sure you take a step back, see who they are, what they've accomplished. Are they in the industry? Do they know what they're talking about before you take it? It kind of reminds me of, you always hear these stories of these actors and actresses that go to Hollywood to try to become like the next movie star. Uh, and I was just thinking, like, I wonder how many times people tell them, like, you're working at a barista at Starbucks and you're 27 and your last acting gig was, 6 months ago. Do you think this is really worth it? And I wonder if we're telling the same people, like someone's listening right now and they've been grinding away, working nights and weekends to become a developer job. They've gone on 20 interviews. They've gotten ghosted 15 times and they've failed a phone interview 5 times. I wonder if we're giving some people a little bit of false hope that they can't do it, just like the actress in Hollywood that's been there for 5 years and it's only gotten a couple of acting gigs. I don't know. It just makes me think that at some point or another, and the sad fact is that you have to have a positive attitude. You have to keep trying, but it's not meant for everyone. And it's not going to happen for everyone, and that's a kind of a crappy thing to say, but it's kind of true.
Yeah, I guess so. I think acting is a bit of a outlandish comparison to a degree because it's like you're taking such extreme differences in the amount of people who want it versus it's a supply and demand thing, right? So like same thing with like if you're like, hey, I'm going to be the next NBA superstar, right? Yeah, you could be. There's just a 1 in 500,000 chance that that's going to happen, right? And so I think software is a little bit different. And what's funny about that is like, you know, I remember recently a subscriber of mine went from doing a dishwasher to a dev, and he 4x'd his income. And he was telling me that like all these people who told him give up, give up, give up, give up are like, hey man, how do I do this in a weekend? And it's like they just think there's like, oh, you just got lucky. It's like, no, there's not so much luck involved in this particular instance. It's just a lot of time, effort, and energy, and being smart with it as well, right? You can, if you can't present yourself in a fashion that people can understand where you're at skill set wise, you're gonna have a hard time getting that job and getting into the industry. But I truly do believe for those who are putting in 20 to 60-hour weeks learning this stuff consistently and are making it their goal, that it will happen. I do believe that. And I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I'm not going to say your first role is going to be great. I'm not going to say you're even going to make good money your first couple roles. But I do think that if you are putting in the amount of time that it takes, which is a lot, that you'll eventually get there.
One of my most controversial videos I've ever done was I did a video on 5 reasons why you shouldn't become a software engineer. And I got so many downvotes on that video, and so many people being like, well, that's just your opinion, or you're trying to weed people out. And no, I know. I definitely believe that anyone can do this, anyone can become a developer. I just think that, I guess if I want to play devil's advocate for a second, I think there is some people out there that it's never going to happen for, and that there's a point at a time where it's physically doing harm to their family or people they love because they keep trying for this and they keep getting rejected, and it's affecting them emotionally, and it's really affecting their family life, that maybe it's not the best role for them. I guess I'm just playing devil's advocate that there is a point in time where not everyone can become a software developer and engineer. I think we've gone quite a bit off track here off our rejection episode. Um, I don't know what else do we want to wrap it up here soon in a bit?
Yeah, I mean, we could do some high level rejection stuff because we've talked about a few things. What other ways have I got rejected? Oh, I got flown out to Seattle and interviewed with Microsoft for 12 hours. Then got rejected for that. That sucked.
I
Uh,
I got I'll go.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
got also rejected from Google after being flown out there, all day interview, put up in a hotel. That sucked.
You know what I wish about the sort of side tangent? I wish they would have given me like a T-shirt or something to take home with me. That would have been like, did you get a T-shirt at your Google interview by chance?
No, I did get a Google name tag that I think I might still have somewhere, but it was just kind of a plastic flimsy thing.
Yeah. I've what other major failures? I mean, I should just ask April. She'll remind me real quick. She'll say some shit that's inappropriate. She's like, "Well, last night was a failure."
Uh, uh,
Like, which, by the way, try again. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how you gotta get better. Anyhow, we're definitely getting off track now. Uh, yeah, I think we've said enough.
yeah, I think let's end in a positive note that, like Dylan's been saying, that don't let these things define you. That things, it's okay. We've just talked about a couple of our stories of being rejected, and we're just going to keep bouncing back, keep trying. Dylan just mentioned he's going to keep applying to different conferences. He's going to try again for the Google, what's it called? Google
Developer expert.
GDE, exactly. GDE,
That's what they call it on the streets. The old GDE.
the
Uh,
GDE.
uh,
You know,
uh,
I've I love my job right now, but if ever something ever happens, I'll be out there and doing that same thing again too.
yeah, and you know, it reminds me. Just on the topic of failure, um, is that I don't know if I've ever actually shared this, but it's so relatable. Is that I actually got hired, quote unquote, hired. A guy's like, "All right, cool, you got the job. I'm gonna send you the contract, and start it as a small web dev shop." And I was super excited. And then a few days later, I followed up and said, "Hey, I never got the contract." And then he's like, I changed my mind." Yeah, dude. He's basically like, I changed my mind. I think I'm going, I think we're gonna hold off on hiring somebody after he told me I got the job in the that was after about 5 months of studying. About 3 months later I got, my first real dev job. I just remembered that right now. I think I probably mentally blocked it for like a decade now or about 5 years. Um but it is very true, and I just want to share that since it's a good time to share that. But do keep challenging yourself and understand that it's part of the process. And if I gave up I think I got rejected 10, 15, 20 times, like in person interviews before I got my first dev job, that I wouldn't have gone from delivering pizzas to, and, paycheck to paycheck, to having full benefits and being able to, let my girlfriend study full time and do all these sorts of things and help my parents out when they need help and my brother out when he needs help. That you gotta keep moving forward, keep trying. It's not gonna be easy, but it's gonna be worth it. That's what you gotta remember.
And you wouldn't have made this amazing podcast that everyone listens to, that really inspires developers either.
That's right. So keep on listening to us failures and tune in next episode where we'll talk
We
about
need to have a yin yang and have we had our failures episode, a rejection episode. Now we have to have our biggest
success.
success.
Yes, I like that. That seems like we could really talk ourselves up, and we should we should definitely
It might sound
make.
a little braggy, but
Hey, you know what? You know what you're getting into. We'll give it a nice title, and we should definitely have like something to market and sell. Like, listen, man, look at this, how great we are. We definitely we can talk to some of these tech gurus out there that are out there shilling
Yep.
stuff left and right and make some money. But on a serious note, tune in next time, and I think that's it.
peace.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to find more about what I'm up to, go to dylanisrael.com.
And if you want to know what I'm up to, you can check out my website at eric.video. If you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And if you do, you might even be featured on our next episode. Don't forget to check out the website at selftaughtornot.com. From there, you can sign up for a mailing list where we give away free courses and a bunch of cool stuff. And we'll also let you know when the next episode comes out. And finally, if you didn't know, we have a Facebook group. It's called Code, Tech, and Caffeine. We have over 10,000 members, and you can find the link at selftaughtornot.com. So come join us. We have tons of developers willing to help you guys, mentor you guys. Check it out. Just make sure you go to selftaughtornot.com and check out the Code, Tech, and Caffeine link. Thanks, and take care.